This is Leon Theremin. This is air. And here he's playing his own instrument, a theremin, 100 years ago. What on earth is this? Or should I say, why is this on earth? And why have I never heard of this until just recently? In fact, when it was invented in the early 1900s, it was expected to take the world with storm. And it did, in some way. I mean, look at it. Not only musicians found this fascinating, but scientists and even political leaders all took significant interest in the invention. And their fascination was entirely justified, as the theremin would go on to revolutionize and shape the course of electronic music. But what it didn't achieve was commercial success. Why? Well, to answer that, we need to understand how this thing works. And to understand that, we should go back to the time it was invented. 1920. Like so many other inventions, the invention of the theremin was an accident. Lev Sergeyevich Theremin, known in the West as Leon Theremin, was a radio engineer with the Soviet military. And whilst he was building a powerful transmitter receiver, specifically trying to use modern technology of radio waves to measure gas properties, he noticed the equipment giving strange wobbling tones, which also could be shaped by moving his hands around it. As a trained cellist, he immediately recognized the potential of his discovery. He decided to create an instrument.
I was not satisfied with the mechanical instruments in existence, of which there were many. Therefore, I transformed electronic equipment into a musical instrument that would provide greater resources.
The technique he had happened to stumble upon was in fact something called heterodyning. This is a technique used to shift signals from one frequency range into another. The theremin is a complex instrument in terms of physics, but I will try my best to describe how it works. It has two antennas. The loop antenna on the right controls the volume, whilst the upright antenna on the left controls the pitch. Each one of these antennas forms one half of a so-called capacitor, which is a device that stores electrical energy, in which the player's hands work as the other half. So, what we see is that the player has something he offers to the instrument, namely his own electricity. By moving away and towards the antennas, they release electrons to make loud and soft sounds in high and low pitches. The frequencies within the instrument are therefore affected by the player's presence around the antennas. The electrical principle can be visualized in so-called plasma globes. The antennas release electricity to the player's hands, and the electrical signals from the theremin are amplified and sent to a loudspeaker. It wasn't a surprise that many people at the time thought it was sorcery, and if someone would have stumbled upon this phenomena 200 years earlier, they would probably be burned alive. However, committed to Soviet nationalism, Theremin proudly showed this instrument to Vladimir Lenin in 1922, who was mightily impressed with the invention. He then embarked on a journey to present his new instrument to the world. Throughout the 20s, he toured Europe, showing off the instrument to packed houses, ending with a concert at Royal Albert Hall in London in 1927, in which it gained huge respect. The newspaper Musical Standard wrote,
"The human voice, the violin, viola, cello, bass and double bass, the cornet, horn, trombone, saxophone, organ, and almost every instrument you can think of are all beaten at their own game by this one simple little apparatus."
Buoyed by newfound confidence, he made his way across the Atlantic to the US. Shortly after arriving, he introduced his invention to none other than Albert Einstein, who found, among other scientists, the instrument scientifically interesting. In fact, Theremin borrowed Einstein a room in his own house so Einstein could research the connection between music and geometry. But although recognition and fame were nice, Leon Theremin also planned on getting rich from his invention. He had high hopes for the instrument.
People will learn to play it without too much difficulty.
He envisioned a theremin in every home.
I think it could be sold and produced at the price of a 3-valve radio set.
He patented the device in 1928 and granted commercial production rights to RCA shortly after. The theremin was ready for the world. But was the world ready for the theremin? As you probably guessed, it wasn't. Despite celebrity sponsors, international headlines, and a major RCA investment, the theremin never quite took off commercially. Some people blame its failure on the Great Depression, as it was unfortunately released immediately after the market crash of 1929. Others blame a patent dispute between Theremin and a New Jersey-based radio company. However, the most significant obstacle was likely a simple but critical misconception. The theremin was actually extremely hard to play, much harder than the Russian let on. It requires extreme control of the body by a performer. There is no fretboard or keyboard for reference, and not only that, but the player needs a brilliant ear to hit specific notes. A combination of relaxed body movements and an intense mental focus. Following the disappointed release of the instrument, Theremin kept on inventing. From early types of drum machines to sensing instruments for US aircrafts, he utilized his brilliant mind. Until 1938. Leon Theremin was suddenly called home, abruptly spirited away by Soviet agents. And when he arrived at home, he wasn't praised as a superstar. He was rather banished to a special prison for scientists in Siberia, where he worked on inventions for Stalin's Soviet. One of his inventions was one of Cold War's most famous bugging devices, simply nicknamed the Thing. Allegedly, Theremin's stay in the US had in fact been encouraged by Kremlin and was a spy mission in which Theremin worked as a Russian spy. I realize now that this video is drifting into something completely else. Leon Theremin's later inventions and espionage missions are totally different stories, so I'll leave it at that. But what happened to the instrument, to the theremin itself? Did it die? Not at all, actually. Despite its commercial failure, it did find its ways in the industry. Firstly, Hollywood fell in love with the instrument, or more specifically, the genres of mystery, horror, and sci-fi films. The instrument turned out to create the perfect sound for bizarre and otherworldly sounds needed in these genres. For example, it became the go-to sound for an alien encounter. Most famously, it was used in The Day the Earth Stood Still, scored by Bernard Herrmann, in which Samuel J. Hoffman had the honor of playing the instrument. Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound is another great example of the theremin atmospherics, and the score even went on to win an Oscar. Other than Hollywood, several theremin enthusiasts kept the instrument alive. One of these enthusiasts was a woman called Clara Rockmore. She is widely regarded as the greatest theremin player ever to have lived. This was also a woman that Leon Theremin himself proposed to, but she turned him down and married another man. But there was another theremin enthusiast who had an even greater impact on the course of music history, namely Robert Moog. This is the part in the video that explains how the theremin changed music. You see, Robert Moog was so fascinated by the instrument that he started building his own theremins in the 50s while he was a high school student. Drawing from his fascination with the theremin and the knowledge he gained from it, inspired him to create a groundbreaking electronic musical instrument, the Moog synthesizer. This was the first commercial synthesizer and established the analog synthesizer concept, which transformed the musical landscape ever since. So what now? The theremin walked so the synthesizer could run, but did that mean that the theremin stopped walking? Not at all, it just took on a different walk. It became a novelty. The theremin began making waves in rock and other genres, with Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page using a pitch-only version of the instrument during live performances of Whole Lotta Love and No Quarter. Frank Zappa, a fan of composer Edgar Varese, an early theremin enthusiast, even composed for the instrument. The theremin also experienced a modern revival, spurred by documentaries like 1993's Theremin, An Electronic Odyssey. Its unique sound returned to the big screen, with a theremin-based score in The Machinist and composer Justin Hurwitz incorporating it into First Man, a space film about Neil Armstrong. Recently, the theremin has also inspired a wave of contemporary artists. Icelandic musician Hekla Magnusdóttir combines the theremin with her voice on her albums, creating a haunting, unique sound. Similarly, Carolina Eick, a maestra of the instrument, actively raises awareness through her compositions and performances, sharing her expertise widely on platforms like YouTube. So, the theremin continued to thrive today. I've linked the channels of some contemporary theremin players in the description if you want to check them out. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. Until next time.